15-year-old Touya Mochizuki is accidentally killed by God after being zapped with lightning by mistake. The creator apologizes to Touya, who seems calm amidst his early death. The boy tells him it still feels like a dream to him. The god then explains that Touya would be resurrected in a new world, due to the rule stating that he cannot be revived in the world he died in, though in exchange, he will grant the boy one request as compensation. The boy asks if he can carry his smartphone, which God agrees to do, and also permits him to call him using the device. The creator also informs him that he will be transported into a magical world. Later, Touya awakens in the new world. He then receives a call from God informing him that he altered the map and navigation on it to match the world he's in. The boy thanks him for this. After disconnecting the call, Touya follows the map to a nearby town and encounters a man named Zanek, who wishes to purchase his school uniform and offers a large sum of money for it. The man then gives him a ride to the town and leads him to his clothing shop for a change of clothes. After receiving his pay of gold coins, Touya asks if there is an inn he can spend his night in. The man suggests that he go to the Silver Moon, and he makes his way to the inn. However, he stumbles upon two girls being cornered by two men in an alley over the price of a crystal antler they were hired to acquire. Intervening in the argument, Touya offers to buy the antler from the two girls in exchange for 1 gold coin, which they immediately agree to. He then breaks the antler, enraging the thugs, who try to attack him in retaliation. In a flashback, before sending him to be reincarnated, God gives him a boost so he can survive in the new world. In the present, he swiftly evades the attacks and defeats them. He then gives the two girls their gold coin, which they initially decline because he saved them. However, Touya insists, and they gladly accept and express their gratitude. They then introduce themselves as the twins, Elza and Rizz. After introducing themselves to each other, Touya learns that the twins are staying at the Silver Moon Inn. They bring the boy to the inn where he meets the owner, Micah. The sisters then talk about their intended delivery of the crystal deer antler, which went terribly. Because of this, they plan to register in the guild instead, and Touya offers to join them as well. That night, he checks his phone about a band breaking up and comments that so many things have changed in a day. The next day, he and the girls travel to the Adventurers Guild. The girls are busy looking at the bulletin board when they discover that Touya can't read. Rizz explains that they are looking at the mission to defeat 5 one-horned wolves in the forest to the east. After the boy agrees to join, they then take the subjugation request. In the forest, Touya and the twins manage to defeat the beasts, and the boy witnesses magic for the first time. After accomplishing their mission, they receive their reward and go back to the inn. He then asks the two to teach him how to read and write, and how to use magic. Rizz asks if he has aptitudes, and explains that it is something he is born with. Touya isn't familiar with the magic system, but is assured that someone powerful has assured him that he can use magic. To know his aptitude first, Rizz brings out spell stones and explains that magic aptitude differs between each person. She can use water magic because she has an aptitude for it, while Elza can't, even though they are twins. Rizz then hands Touya the water spell stone and discovers that he can easily use it. He tries other elements like fire, earth, wind, light, and darkness, which shocks the girls as it is the first time they have seen someone use the 6 magic attributes. When asked by Touya, Rizz explains that it is rare for a single person to have more than 3 magics like hers. He then sees a light-colored stone, which the girl explains is called a null stone. Null magic is special, as it doesn't have any set chance. She also elaborates that her sister's fortification is one of the null magics. There is also Power Rise, which can boost one's strength, and a rare one called Gate, which allows him to travel long distances. Touya then decides to test whether he possesses null magic, and calls forth a gate. All of them are stunned by this, and they peek their heads inside. Rizz realizes that they had appeared in the eastern forest, where they subjugated the one-horned wolves, with Elza stating that it must have been on his mind when he activated the spell. Later, in the Silver Moon Inn, Elza and Rizz express their amazement at how powerful Touya's magic is, and how many attributes he can use. Micah then introduces Touya and the others to Era, who runs the parent cafe in town. She then asks if any of them know any new dessert recipes that she could try in her restaurant. However, Elza and Rizz don't know any, but Touya suggests ice cream, confusing everyone as the food doesn't exist in the world. He then fetches his phone and searches for an ice cream recipe. The twins wonder what the device could be, and he tells them that it is a kind of magic that only he can use. They then write down the recipe and ask Lins if she can use ice magic, which the girl confirms. Together, they all try to make ice cream. Later, Era takes a bite of the vanilla ice cream and expresses her gratitude to Touya, saying it will surely be a great hit at her shop. However, he instead thanks everyone, saying that making ice cream is the least he can do for all the kindness he received. The trio arrives in a new town, while on their way to deliver a letter to someone in the royal capital, as per the guild's request. Touya regrets not taking the Mega Slime subjugation request instead, since it paid better. However, the girls are against it because they find slime disgusting. As they discuss this, they notice a commotion and decide to investigate. They find a young girl in an unusual outfit, arguing with several men. The men are targeting the girl as revenge for getting their drunk friends arrested. She swiftly uses jujitsu to subdue them, but pauses when her stomach growls. Touya intervenes, using his sand magic, and Elsa follows by kicking one of the thugs in the face. Hearing the guards approaching, they quickly retreat into an alley. The girl expresses her gratitude and introduces herself as Ye Kokonoi, a traveler from Ishin. After Ye explains that she lost her travel funds, they treat her to lunch. While happily eating, she explains that she came from a warrior family and chose to travel to hone her abilities. Currently, she's heading to the royal capital to test her strength. Elsa tells her they're heading the same way and invites her to accompany them. While in a carriage, Lins hands Touya a spell book on null magic. She explains that since null magic is a personal spell, one can experiment with it to create different effects. The boy reads through the spell book, which indeed contains random personalized spells, such as curling hair and making dogs friendly. He then discovers a spell that can pull distant objects into his hand. Concentrating, he chants apports, but fails to take Ye's katana. Elsie suggests he might only be able to take small items, so he tries taking Ye's ribbon, and this time, he succeeds. As Touya continues reading, he finds a spell called Slip, which removes friction in a designated area. Exploring further, he finds a spell called Long Sense, which extends his 5 senses beyond their normal range. Suddenly, he smells blood from a distance and asks Ye to follow him towards it. Upon arriving at the scene, Touya and his companions find a carriage under attack by lizardmen, summoned by a magician, and guarded by soldiers. While the 3 girls defeat the horde, Touya uses the slip spell to distract the beasts. Suddenly, more beasts emerge from the forest. When Lins spots the magician chanting a spell, she informs Touya that he is using summoning magic to call forth the lizardmen. Hearing this, he uses the slip spell to disrupt the magician's incantation, allowing Ye to easily capture him. After defeating the enemies, the grateful guards thank them for their assistance. However, a girl's shout for help draws their attention to the carriage, where they find a man gravely injured. Touya instructs Lins to use her healing magic, but the girl informs him that she can't because an arrow is lodged inside the man's body. Determined to help, Touya uses the apport spell to extract the arrow from the man's body. He then uses healing magic to close the man's wound, who immediately recovers from his injuries. The man introduces himself as Lime, a butler in service to Duke Ortland. He then presents the girl beside him as the Duke's daughter, Sushi Ortlinde. Everyone bows to her, leaving Touya confused about the nobility system. Apologizing, he is reassured by the girl, who tells him it's a small matter compared to him saving their lives. She then asks them to call her Sue. Liam requests their help in escorting them safely to the royal capital, promising a generous reward for their services. The group agrees to accompany them, since they are all headed to the same destination. Upon arriving at the royal capital, Sue brings the group to their mansion, where the Duke warmly welcomes his daughter and expresses his gratitude to Touya and the others for saving her. Later, Touya discusses the attack on Sue with the Duke, speculating who might be behind it. When Sue returns from speaking with her mother, Touya inquires about the Duchess and learns she is blind due to an illness she suffered 5 years ago, which multiple healers have been unable to cure. The Duke explains that Sue had been traveling searching for a spell to heal her mother, recalling that her grandfather possessed a spell capable of restoring sight. Sue hopes to find someone powerful enough to use her grandfather's healing magic. However, the Duke states that it is impossible since it is a null magic spell, meaning only the person who created it can use it. Upon hearing this, the girls excitedly point out that Touya can use any null magic. Later, Touya casts a spell on the Duchess, successfully restoring her sight, much to everyone's joy. The Duke, deeply grateful to Touya for saving his daughter and restoring his wife's sight, presents him with a pouch containing 40 platinum coins. Understanding that this is equivalent to 40 million yen, Touya tries to refuse the reward. However, the Duke insists, and also grants them medals bearing his family's crest, allowing them to pass through city checkpoints and access facilities typically reserved for nobility. After delivering the letter and completing their quest, Touya asks Ye about her plans. She explains that she wishes to stay with the trio, as they are worthy traveling companions. The three then warmly welcomed Ye into their party. Touya and the girls are walking through the city when he asks them about the various demi-human inhabitants of the royal capital, such as elves, dwarves, beastmen, and fairies. As they explore, they come across a young demi-human girl named Arma, who looks lost. The girl explains that she got separated from her companion and can't find her way through the city. Touya offers to guide her using the navigation on his phone. Moments later, Arma is reunited with her older sister Olga. Meanwhile, at the inn, Touya's two friends, Baral and Dolan, are playing shogi due to the heavy rain. Touya had created shogi after learning to use a magic spell called modeling, which allows him to reshape minerals and wooden objects at will. When questioned about the whereabouts of the others, Micah mentions that Elza and Ye went to the parent cafe to try a new dessert that had recently been released, thanks to Touya. Elza then asks Touya to deliver some of the desserts to the Duke upon their return. Later, at the Duke's mansion, Touya delivers the cakes and introduces the Duke to shogi. Several hours pass as the Duke becomes engrossed in the game, much to Sue's annoyance. Desperate to play herself, Sue starts tickling Touya, trying to get him to convince her father to let her have a turn, but her efforts prove unsuccessful. Later, the group heads to the guild in the royal capital to take on a new quest. Touya proposes a slime hunting quest again, but the girls immediately refuse due to their strong aversion to slime. Instead, they choose a subjugation request to defeat a Dullahan and a pack of one-horned wolves in the old capital ruins. Despite some challenges, they successfully complete the quest. While taking a break afterward, Touya uses his search spell to look for any signs of treasure nearby, but his first attempt fails. Trying again, he searches for any indications of a historic treasure and succeeds. They decide to pursue the treasure Touya found, only to discover the location buried under a huge pile of rubble. As they ponder how to get through it, Linz casts a powerful fire spell to clear the debris, which Touya comments was a bit excessive, causing her to feel embarrassed. After uncovering a door, the group enters an underground passage, with Linz using a light spell to guide their way. After traveling quite a distance, they come across a large wall covered in a strange language that even Linz can't decipher. To learn more, Touya takes a picture of it to study later. Linz asks him to activate a symbol that reacts to earth magic since she, Elza, and Ye lack the affinity. From a safe distance, the girls watch as he activates the symbol, causing the wall to disintegrate, revealing a tunnel. At the end of it, they discover a strange glass statue. Linz's light ball begins to fade unnaturally, and Ye notices a red glow within the statue. Realizing it's alive, the statue releases painful sound waves, causing the room to collapse. Touya quickly uses his gate to transport everyone to safety. However, their relief is short-lived as the glass monster breaks through to the surface. Linz's flame spell and Ye's attack are ineffective, and Touya realizes they need to use indirect magic. Linz drops ice on the monster, and Elza breaks its legs, but the creature regenerates and injures her in the chest. Touya then uses his healing magic, which immediately helps the girl to recover. He then realizes that the red orb inside the monster is its life source, and then tells Elza his plan. He stands before the monster and activates a ports, extracting the red orb from the creature. Elza then smashes it using her gauntlet, causing the creature to disintegrate. After successfully defeating the enemy, they report the incident to the Duke, who plans to investigate further. Touya shows the Duke photos of the tunnel to help decipher the ancient language and understand more about the monsters. Later, he uses drawing magic to copy the photos and visits the Duke using the gate. He then sees the Duke's carriage depart. Upon seeing him, the Duke exits the carriage, informing Touya that his brother, the king, has been poisoned. The Duke shares his suspicion with Touya that some Belfast nobles might be behind the king's poisoning, given their opposition to an alliance with the kingdom of Mismeda. He explains that if the king dies, Princess Yumina would inherit the throne, and the perpetrator might try to manipulate her through advisory roles or marriage. The Duke then asks Touya to heal the king using his recovery spell. Upon arriving at the castle, they are greeted by Count Balsa, who informs them that a suspect has been arrested for the assassination attempt, surprising the Duke. When the Duke asks about the suspect's identity, Count Balsa reveals it is the ambassador of Mismeda. The Duke reprimands Balsa for suggesting the ambassador be executed, insisting that only the king can decide his fate. Touya uses his slip magic on Balsa to teach him a lesson about his attitude. Upon reaching the king's chamber, the Duke urgently asks Touya to heal his brother, which he does, astonishing everyone present. General Leon gratefully thanks the boy for saving the king, while the royal mage, Charlotte, is fascinated by his magical abilities. Princess Yumina and the queen also express their heartfelt thanks for restoring the king's health. The king then requests to speak with the ambassador of Mismede, who is suspected of attempting to poison him, as he collapsed after drinking wine sent by the ambassador. Touya is surprised to learn that the ambassador is Olga, the older sister of Arma, whom he had met before. Determined to prove Olga's innocence, he uses his search magic to investigate the scene and uncover how the poisoning occurred. He then requests the presence of the king and his party, including Count Balsa. Upon entering the room, the count is shocked to see that the king has recovered. With everyone gathered, he declares that one of them is the culprit. He asks General Leon to taste a bottle of wine to check for poison. After confirming it is safe, he pours it into the king's glass and asks Count Balsa to drink it. The count refuses, and the general forces him to drink it. Panicking, Balsa claims he has been poisoned. Touya then reveals that he had already cleaned the wine glass, proving it was safe. It turns out Balsa poisoned the king's glass and now tries to escape. Touya uses his slip magic to prevent Balsa from fleeing. Later, the king thanks Touya for saving his life and offers him a reward. Suddenly, the princess asks her parents for permission to marry Touya, much to his surprise. The king and queen readily agree, flustering the boy. The king explains that Yumina has the mystic eyes of intuition, allowing her to see a person's true character. Touya is in disbelief, especially since Yumina is only 12 years old and too young for marriage. The king elaborates that royalty typically chooses a partner by age 15. The princess then wonders if Touya dislikes her, but he quickly clarifies that in his country, marriage is only considered when men are 18 and women are 16. Since he is almost 16, the king decides that Yumina will live with Touya for the next 2 years to win his affection. If she fails to earn his love, they will part ways without hard feelings. Reluctantly, the boy agrees to this arrangement. Later, he rests in a guest room, lamenting that he couldn't get out of the arrangement. He receives a call from God, who has been watching him. God informs him that polygamy is common in that world, so he can have as many wives as he wishes. God roots for him and wishes him happiness. Frustrated, Touya can only shout into his pillow. Returning to the inn with the princess, he explains the situation to his companions and introduces them to Yumina, who hugs him affectionately, much to their surprise. The 3 girls are shocked, and Elsa realizes that the marriage means Touya will become the next king. However, Yumina adds that if they have a child, the child will be the next ruler instead. After registering the princess at the Adventurer Guild, they take up a quest to subjugate a pack of Kiniags. On the way, the princess explains that despite her royal upbringing, she is trained in archery and magic. To prove her point, she summons a pack of wolves to draw out the target monsters and offers to teach Touya summoning magic. Suddenly, monsters emerge from the bushes, and the girls fight and successfully defeat them. After completing the quest, Yumina teaches Touya summoning magic, and he successfully summons a giant white tiger. The princess explains that this is one of the 4 heavenly beasts, known as the White Monarch. Touya asks about the requirements for creating a contract, and the White Monarch instructs him to pour his magic into him to gauge his power. He complies, releasing so much magic that the White Monarch briefly passes out. Upon recovering, the White Monarch agrees to form a pact and asks the boy to give him a name. He names him Koha, and the monarch, accepting the name, transforms into a tiger cub to travel with them. The princess immediately grabs Koha, hugging him as he looks adorable. As he tries to escape, the other girls come out from the inn and witness the princess hugging Koha. They then take turns snatching him from each other to hug him. Koha looks to Touya for help, but the master tells him to endure it for a while. The girls are less than thrilled about their next guild quest, which involves searching the castle of a slime researcher who has gone missing. Touya tries to cheer them up, though they become skeptical of his enthusiastic demeanor towards this quest. Touya and the others arrive at the castle. As they enter, Touya is struck in the head with a wash basin that fell from above. The group is surprised when the basin turns into a slime that is unfamiliar to them. Linz suggests that they search the castle for the owner's research documents to learn more about the slimes. They start looking for clues about the slime researcher's work, with Linz discovering a book detailing various slimes created by the researcher. Despite their efforts, they find nothing substantial and decide to delve deeper. In the castle's lobby, they encounter green slime, prompting Koha to transform to his original size to battle them, which proves ineffective. They retreat to the second floor, where Linz believes their lack of pursuit is due to the slime establishing territory on the lower floor. As they prepare to move forward, Elsa slips on liquid and falls, drawing attention to a group of white slimes at the staircase's top. Using the slime book, Linz identifies it as a lotion slime, an unsuccessful creation by the researcher that secretes a lubricating substance when it senses danger. As Elsa attempts to stand, she slips and falls again, this time accidentally knocking everyone else down as well. As they tumble to the lower floor, the green slime begins to dissolve their clothing. Touya rescues them by employing his gate spell. However, the girls feel embarrassed in front of Touya due to their situation. Donning temporary clothes, the group continues their exploration of the castle. Touya speculates that the numerous failed experiments were due to the researcher attempting to create a particular type of slime, but being unable to confirm its unique trait, which Linz validates. Touya then observes something unusual about the statues nearby. As he examines them, the slimes attached to the statues come to life, surprising the group, with Linz identifying them as bust slimes, designed to enhance the busts of girls with smaller chests. Yet another of the researchers' failed attempts. Simultaneously, the slimes try to attack Yumina for obvious reasons, and she promptly destroys them. They later discover the office of the slime researcher, where they find his remains. Touya uncovers the researcher's journal, which claims he had achieved every man's dream. At that moment, he notices 4 slimes beginning to transform into replicas of the girls, which astonishes them. The girls attempt to prevent him from looking, eventually hitting him on the head. Sometime later, they observe the castle burning down. Touya is still perplexed that the researcher aimed to create slimes that could turn a harem fantasy into reality. Koha requests that Touya take him to a human town, and Touya agrees. In the town, Touya and Koha explore, eventually noticing Ye speaking to a crying little girl. When Touya approaches Ye, she explains that she found the child and has been trying to help her, but the girl hasn't responded to any questions. Koha manages to communicate with the girl and learns her name is Lim. When Touya uses his search spell to find any of her family, he cannot detect anyone nearby. He then uses the map function on his smartphone to enhance his spell, successfully locating her mother. After reuniting the separated family, Ye asks Touya to help locate her brother, and he agrees. At the inn, Ye describes her hometown and her brother to Touya, assisting him in the search using his smartphone. He then finds her brother in their family's dojo back in her homeland, which reassures Ye. In his room, Touya casts Enchant, long sense on his phone to test it before using the camera function. He then accidentally views the room where Linz is changing her clothes. He quickly turns off the camera in embarrassment, and moments later, Linz knocks on his door and enters. She asks him to help her learn ancient magic from a scroll. Touya enchants a reading glass to enable her to read the spells. Linz practices the spell Ballistic Bubble Bomb, but can't get it to work, and runs out of mana. While she rests for a bit, Touya comes up with an idea. When Linz tries again and exhausts herself, Touya uses null magic to replenish her mana with his own surplus. He advises Linz to imagine a soap bubble to help master the spell. Following his advice, she tries the spell again and successfully executes it, thanking Touya for his help. Meanwhile, Elsa breaks her gauntlet. Touya takes her to buy replacements. While walking back, Elsa is captivated by a gothic Lolita dress in a shop window. Touya persuades her to try it on, but she refuses out of embarrassment. He then buys it as a gift and compliments her once she tries it on. When the other girls see her, they also think the dress suits her well. Yumina receives a letter from her father, who wants to grant Touya knighthood as a reward for saving his life. The group arrives at the mansion that Touya receives as a reward from the king. Upon entering, they are surprised by the spacious interior, with Touya wondering how 5 people could maintain such a large place by themselves, much to everyone's surprise. The 3 girls ask Touya if it's really okay for them to stay with him and Yumina in the mansion. He confirms this, saying he considers them family. The 3 blush deeply and head upstairs, leaving Touya puzzled. Yumina tells him that she doesn't intend to monopolize him, and she runs off to find the girls. Later, Touya is introduced to servants sent by the king to manage the mansion, including the king's butler, Layim, who is the older brother of Layim, whom Touya previously saved. He then receives word that the Duke and Sue have arrived at the mansion to see him. Touya and Yumina converse with the Duke, who wishes to hire the boy for an adventurer quest to travel to Miss Meda to meet the king, and use his gate spell to facilitate quick and safe passage between Belfast and Miss Meda's people. The group is then introduced to the party that will escort them to Miss Meda, including the troop commander, Garen, and Lion Blitz, a knight from Belfast. Garen briefs the team on the route they will take to reach Miss Meda territory. As night falls, the group makes camp. A guard named Line, using her rabbit ears, hears the sound of several people approaching. Touya uses his smartphone to locate the bandits, finding 28 of them. He uses Enchant Multiple on his phone to select targets, and then casts a paralysis spell to immobilize them. He informs the escorts that the bandits are now harmless and can be captured. When they wonder what to do with the bandits, Lion offers to send someone to bring guards to take them away. Olga commends Lion, causing him to become flustered, and Touya quickly realizes that Lion likes Olga. The following day, the group makes a stop in a town. Touya, Yumina, and Arma encounter Lion while he is shopping at the brooch stand. Touya offers to buy Arma a brooch, subtly guiding the knight on what Olga might like. After making their selections, they leave, and Yumina expresses a slight sadness at not receiving anything, although she quickly mentions that the only token she truly desires is a wedding ring, which makes Touya feel uneasy. Later, the group crosses the river into Miss Meda territory to acquire new carriages for their journey. Linz feels queasy during the boat ride, so Touya carries her on his back until she feels better. Elsa playfully teases her twin for having the boy carry her. Suddenly, Touya senses a presence, which Koha confirms telepathically is real. As they leave, he and Yumina notice that Olga is wearing the brooch they suggested to Lion. In the carriage, Olga worries they won't reach the next village before nightfall, and camping is dangerous with all the magic beasts in the area. However, Touya explains that Koha's presence will repel any smaller animals, so they decide to camp out. While camping, he checks on the girls, who use the gate to easily wash up. They return outside the carriage to find everyone on alert. Lane notes that something gigantic is looming in the sky and discovers a black dragon. Olga mentions that it may be a juvenile dragon acting uncontrollably. Touya checks his map, discovering that the dragon is heading to the village. They head to the village and discover that the dragon is burning the houses. The knights help the villagers, while Toya's group distracts the dragon. He activates his sparkling Holy Lance spell and throws shining javelins at the dragon. Linz then activates her power and cuts off its wings. However, the beast suddenly breathes fire, and Touya saves Linz from harm. Just then, Ye leaps and blinds the dragon, and Elsa also appears and strikes it using her gauntlet. However, the dragon is not defeated and continues to breathe fire. Touya attempts to damage it further but breaks his katana instead. Before the dragon can harm him, he is saved by a kunai that takes out its other eye. He then quickly has Linz create a wall of ice, which he transforms into a magnifying glass. Casting his multiple spells, Touya passes the power of several shining javelins through it, creating a massive beam of light that rips a hole through the dragon, slaying it. Just then, a giant red dragon arrives and apologizes for his subordinate's misbehavior. Koha tells the red dragon that its master, the Azure Monarch, should be raising dragons with more discipline. Surprised to see the white monarch, the red dragon assumes Koha eliminated his subordinate. However, Koha tells him that his master, Touya, was the one who killed the black dragon. The red dragon is amazed that a human could tame a monarch and bows before the boy, asking to be spared. Touya lets the red dragon go, instructing him to give the young dragons a good scolding. The dragon promises to do this and takes off. For the rest of the night, everyone works on helping the villagers. By morning, Elsa, Linza, and Ye are sleeping in a carriage. A tired Touya sits against a tree, and Yumina gives him a blanket. When he wakes up, he finds himself sleeping in the princess's lap, with the three girls standing nearby and looking at them. The princess tells them to respect her win in rock, paper, scissors. Touya telepathically asks Koha what is going on, to which the tiger states that it is a battle between women, making him even more confused. The entourage is baffled, as Toya's party perfectly and magnanimously handles the dragon rampage. The village elder, Solom, thanks them for their services, and hands the young man one of the beast's fangs, telling him to use it to forge a replacement for his broken weapon. Moreover, they return a mysterious blade that was stuck in the dragon's eye. Remembering the unexpected help last night, he spends some time wondering about their identity. Koha says he sensed a couple of people in the grove. Just then, they reach Miss Med's capital, Berge. Later, they present themselves to the ruler of Beastmen, who welcomes them from their long journey. Introducing herself, the Princess of Belfast underscores the importance of their alliance, delivering to him a letter penned by her father. He tells them to enjoy his palace, as he considers the offer, but suddenly challenges Touya to spar, fired up by the dragon's defeat. For some reason, he unexpectedly finds himself in a ring. Finding their ruler's stubborn hot-bloodedness troublesome, the Kind's advisor tells the boy to give him a good thrashing. The referee explains the match's rules, and the Beastman asks for an all-out fight. Obliging, the human uses his slip spell, instantly ending the match. Dissatisfied with the anticlimactic outcome, King Yamuka demands another round, with the slip spell off-limits. The Beastman has the upper hand with hand-to-hand combat, but magic tips the scales. Touya's attack is countered, but he successfully dodges as well. As everyone is surprised, he confirms that it's his null magic, Axel. Interested, the boy graciously mimics the move, quickly gaining enough mastery to match the original user in battle. Falling behind in strength, he speeds up with boost, striking first on the next clash. Admitting defeat, the king raises his arms in surrender and holds a banquet later on. The guests are provided with elegant local clothing, and the sight is pretty enough to make Touya take a photo. Calming the surprised Beastman, he explains that it's another null spell, which allows him to transfer images to other surfaces. Resting after printing multiple photos upon request, he encounters a walking stuffed toy. He's urged to follow, and soon finds himself in a dark room, where a girl sits calmly in the center. As she hears that he's the rumored dragon slayer, she introduces herself as Lean, an elder of the fairy folk, far older than he is despite her appearance. The teddy bear, Paula, is moving because of her null spell program, which allows her to command inanimate objects. It's limited to simple and attainable motions that make use of what the objects already have. To her surprise and slight discomfort, he immediately uses program as he saw. Hearing that he can use all elements, her discomfort is replaced with satisfaction, prompting her to take him on as an apprentice. He immediately refuses and runs back to his room, nearly collapsing from the exhausting day. Getting an idea before going to sleep, he heads out early in the morning and runs into Yumina and Linza. With the other two training with Miss Maida's soldiers, they're free to accompany him shopping. In the forest, he asks the mage to cut the dragon fang into pieces, wanting to create a new weapon. Using modeling, he forges a gunblade's body and bullets, and uses a port and program to make it reload seamlessly upon command. With their interest piqued, the ladies asked for guns as well. After granting their request, he programs his weapon again, allowing him to transform it between a gun and a sword. Naming it Brunhild, they head back for now, deciding to fill their stomachs after the long day. After picking a restaurant, Koha informs his master of two people observing them from a building nearby. As such, he tells the ladies to go ahead, and that he'll catch up soon enough. With Axel, he appears behind the masked culprits, but they use a flash of light to get away. Fortunately, the encounter has allowed him to track them, so he appears before them just as easily as before. The young man subdues the two with his new gun, but uses rubber bullets to minimize injuries. Tying them up, he asks who they are, and sees familiar faces behind the masks. It's Lapis and Cecile, who explain that they're part of Espion, a spy group working directly under Belfast's king. They've been ordered to protect the royal princess from the shadows, and have been doing so since the beginning of their journey. In fact, the knife that struck the dragon's eye was none other than Cecile's, who's apparently a master at throwing knives. Laim is also in on it, and they ask that he allow them to continue with their duty in secret. Yumina would lash out if she found that she was being watched, and could even cause a national affair. Giving in, he returns to the restaurant to meet his friends, where they're served plates of curry rice. After a few bites, they all jump up in shock, not expecting the spiciness of the dish. The next day, the king and duke are transported through a gate and finally meet with the Beastman king. Meanwhile, Lean is still thinking of the boy and remembers her apprentice, Charlotte. Since she's also in Belfast, the elder decides to pay the kingdom a visit. With their mission complete, Touya's party returns to their mansion. The maids thank him for allowing them to use gate earlier and hide their identities as spies. Exhausted from his continuous adventures, the boy decides to lie low for a while and drifts off to sleep. Waking up later, he heads to the bathroom to wash up, but chances upon all the ladies in the middle of changing. On his knees, he repeatedly apologizes, although still taking glimpses of the sight in front of him. While using modeling later on, the Duke comes to visit. He's come to thank the boy for his help, but grows curious as Touya shares how he's making bicycles. Waiting for him to finish, he hijacks the ride, trying his best to master the new item. The ladies see him elated after moving a few inches, and soon get bicycles of their own. While their learning curves differ, an odd sense of competitiveness fills the air, born from the young man's praise. That said, the Duke surpasses them all, and asks that he make another one, small enough for Sue. He heads out to buy materials while they race, but sees a bunch of thugs in an alley. They're beating a child up, complaining that their territory is being invaded, and that guards are cracking down on them, thanks to the young pickpocket. Touya appears right on time to save the helpless child. Since they're likely criminals as well, he subdues them with rubber bullets and advises the kid to stop stealing, or else they get caught. Just then, a stomach grumbles loudly, so he invites the starving child to a meal. To his surprise, the thief's cap flies away, revealing a girl's long and silky hair. Her name is Rennie, and she is an orphan who lives in the streets here and there. Feeling sorry after hearing her story, he offers her a job at his mansion, where she'll get food, accommodations, and a regular wage. At home, everyone fawns as the newcomer is dressed in a maid's clothes. As she leaves to learn about her duties from Laim and the others, Touya is reminded of his forgotten errand. Soon enough, Sue is brought to the kingdom through a gate. They encounter Alma, who was taking a stroll, and the young man is delighted to see Lion, out on what seems to be a date with Olga. They end up tailing them out of curiosity, and see the guard's innocence, as he hesitates to hold her hand. The pair enters a restaurant, and the young man wants to stop peeping. However, he's forced to spy with his null spells, as the younger sister insists on watching Olga. Watching them get along quite well, talks of romantic dates come up, with Yumina complaining that she hasn't been on a proper one yet. The pair exits the establishment. Alma tries to run to her sister, but bumps into a large, cloaked figure, whom Touya easily identifies as the king himself. Briefed of the situation, the ruler joins the spying session on the couple, and shares that visiting the town undercover is a hobby of his, disregarding his minister's anger. As he shares that men in his time were bolder, a bunch of thugs pick on a vendor, and the soldier runs to aid the victim. However, they're all armed, prompting the eavesdroppers to help. Wearing silly masks, they apprehend the men with no trouble, but are quickly identified, as their distinct appearances easily give their identities away. While the king escapes with Axel, Touya gets a firm grip on his shoulder. Taking the opportunity, he calls Lion out for being unclear, eventually outwitting and making him admit that he wants to date the ambassador. He looks back, realizing what he's blurted out, but is surprised to see Olga looking extremely red. She bashfully thanks him for choosing her, and he screams in delight at her answer. Back home, Liam announces that they have a guest. Paula, Lean, and Charlotte appear, with the elder saying she's come to research. He introduces her to Yumina. Seeing her confusion, the fairy explains that she's hiding her wings, as they stand out too much in some countries. She then asks about the crystal beast he defeated in the ruins. With everyone gathered, Lean explains that a runner discovered a crack in the sky several days earlier. She came to investigate with an entire platoon, but the creature had already claimed its victims. She's surprised to have heard that he's already defeated one, and more so, that he can use all null magic. The fairy shows him an illustration of the crystal beast, but it's wriggly, unlike the one they fought. She heard that long ago, demons called Freys nearly destroyed the world. While it isn't clear if they're the same creatures, there's only one way to find out. Adding that she's heard about his ability to use gate, the elder says there's magic called recall, which reads the thoughts of others. Using the two together should allow him to jump to places, in the memories he reads. To their surprise, she asks that he use the combination and take her to Ishin to investigate ruins. Lean suggests reading Ye's memories, assuring her that memories can only be read if permitted. As conditions for the best results, they take an intimate position. The spell lets him see Ishin as planned, and the party is promptly transported to the destination. While unsure of the exact location, Lean wants to investigate the Naruya ruins. Hearing that Ye's father might know where it is, the elder drags the girl, asking that she lead them to him. They soon reach the end of the forest and see her hometown, Wado. Walking through the town, the local explains how they have a king, but each region is effectively governed by its own lord. For some reason, the names and items around them seem to match those of Earth, making Touya look knowledgeable. They arrive at Ye's home, where she's excitedly greeted by Ayane, a close servant, and Nanai, her mother. However, she's regrettably informed that her father isn't home, as he was called on to fight alongside Jutaro and their lord Iyasu to defend against the Takeda army. There are rumors that their fortress is about to fall soon, and that her father and brother won't make it. They didn't expect such a turn, but the party agrees to help her family with the war. Passing through the gate, Touya confirms her brother's safety and volunteers to go ahead and ensure everyone's safety first. He does as planned, but is surprised to see what seems to be undead soldiers. In the fortress filled with injured men, someone reports to Jutaro that their enemies keep rising back up, no matter how many they defeat. It's said that they stop when their masks break, but it's yet to be confirmed. Just then, Touya enters through his gate and proves his identity by having Ye and the others pass through as well. The sister explains that they're her reliable comrades and asks about their father. While they catch up, the young man uses program to select all the injured men and heals them all in one go. Moving on to the battlefield's details, they speak about the masks. Lean calls them artifacts of ancient civilizations and likens them to the smartphone. He uses program to select all the enemies like before and casts light magic to strike them all down. With this, the long battle ends, and his companions aren't even surprised anymore. Later, Iyasu thanks them for their service, and they all catch up about what's been happening recently. Flustered to be introduced as the princess's future husband, Touya moves the conversation to the enemies. Based on their actions, the head says that the rumors of the death of Takeda's lord must be true, and must have been succeeded by Kansukai, the dark strategist. He's likely using an artifact to create an army of the dead, and the battle should end with his capture. As they're saying that they don't know his whereabouts, a woman appears, saying she can lead the way. She's Tsubaki, a servant to one of Takeda's 4 main generals, and has come to deliver a message to Ieyasu. According to the letter, all generals but himself have been thrown in prison, and he's asking for their help to save their nation. Touya readily accepts the request, and asks if Leon can turn them invisible, with the magic she uses to hide her wings. With this, only the 3 of them are set to infiltrate enemy lines. The others tell him to hold it off until night, as they have to update everyone about their plans and prioritize taking care of the citizens. Jubei tries to prepare horses, but they decline, simply asking Tsubaki to picture Takeda camp. The boy gets in position to use recall, much to his friend's annoyance. They later prepare to infiltrate the camp, using the image-bending spell to hide themselves. However, the gate fails to work, likely hindered by Kansukai's barrier. The servant offers to break it, but doing so would prompt the enemies to be on alert. As such, the group will have to proceed on foot. Before going, Lean plays a joke, touching the lady inappropriately and pretending to be Touya while invisible. Successfully sneaking in, they reach an underground cell, holding Baba, one of the 4 generals. Tsubaki explains who they are and what they're doing, and is directed to the cells further back, where the other generals are imprisoned. The young man uses null magic to free them all, and asks where Kansukai is. He uses his phone, but is unsuccessful in finding the target, likely because of the barrier. Told that there should be a talisman somewhere, the other generals led the way, picking up some weapons along the way. Touya destroys the talisman, and even eliminates all the masked soldiers in the vicinity. With that settled, they finally reach their target, but he summons a powerful undead soldier, presumably the late ruler, Oyakata. Having sentimental and close ties, none of the locals are able to raise their swords against him, but the young foreigner shoots him with no hesitation. Impressed, Kansukai reveals the immortal gem lodged in his eye socket, pushing death away from himself and his soldiers. While gloating, the gem appears in Toya's hands with apports. Deeming it too dangerous, they destroy it immediately, causing the strategist's body to crumble and the lord to fall lifeless. As things get settled the next day, Baba tells them that Naruya ruins are on the sea floor and that he's been to a nearby island before. Reluctantly using recall with the old man, they figure out the location and accordingly say goodbye to Ye's family. With Gate, the party arrives at a beautiful beach. They're mesmerized by the glistening ocean and hot sand. With his smartphone, Touya easily locates the ruins underwater. Meanwhile, the ladies play in the water, wishing they had swimsuits to wear. The otherworlder is surprised that there are swimsuits in that world, and more so, that they're easily sold in stores. While they're there to investigate the ruins, lled doesn't mind, as long as they'll still help later on. Soon enough, most of their companions are brought to the beach through the gate, and everyone thanks the young man for allowing it to happen. Even better, he makes changing tents and toys for everyone to use. After changing, the ladies show their outfits to Touya, who compliments them all for looking so nice. Taking memorable photos and enjoying the sun, they all play in the water, splashing each other lightly. Cecile comes to watch Sue and René, arriving late due to a few wardrobe issues. Lapis also appears, pointing out the young man's suspicious eyes and remarks. As dutiful as ever, she's ready to serve her master's drinks, but says she and her partner will take turns having fun. Meanwhile, the three men are as competitive as ever, racing through the water. As Touya gets up after a while, wanting to get along with the investigation, Yumina runs up and gets close, asking him to play in the water. Fortunately, she understands his wishes and runs along to join the others. lled appears with Paula, saying she can join as she's been enchanted with magic protection. He casts the same protection on himself and confirms that Koha will be joining as well, making a few comments about how Tsubaki is missing and how he probably would have wanted to see her wearing one. The elder moves on to progress with the investigation. Not wanting to swim and get a sunburn, she rejects the idea of going underwater, leaving him no choice but to dive alone. He sees the ruins soon after, but nearly drowns as he can't hold his breath any longer. There's a spell that had let them function underwater, but lled never bothered to learn, as she's completely disinterested in diving. Seeing Charlotte, the fairy calls her apprentice over and asks if she knows of such a spell. Hearing that she doesn't, the tyrannical master scolds her and forbids her from changing out of her swimsuit. Just then, Koha cuts in and says there's someone who controls water of all types. It's the Black Emperor, the one on par with him. One can't typically summon a specific individual, but with a mix of the tiger's spirit energy and his master's magic power, they're sure to notice and answer their call. Distancing themselves to perform the ritual, Koha adds that the Emperor are two beings in one. Using a combination of their powers, Touya calls them forth with an incantation. Against his expectations, a turtle and snake appear, looking quite friendly with the White Emperor. They're surprised and doubtful that the tiger has taken on a master, but humors the idea of forging a pact with him. The challenge is to fight them and keep his limbs intact by sunset. Calmly accepting, he causes the turtle to fall over with slip and programs a bullet to repeatedly cast slip on an area. When the effect runs out, shooting the ground, he makes the Emperor slip endlessly and waits for them to give up. Meanwhile, the ladies are locked in an intense volleyball game, where lled suffers an unfortunate wardrobe malfunction. She hides in embarrassment, afraid of Touya seeing. They fortunately get through the crisis, but wonder what the young man is busy doing. Nearly passing out from spinning so much, the Black Emperor surrenders, acknowledges their new master, and asks for names to forge the pact. The snake is named Kokuyu, and the turtle is named Sango. Accepting their new names, the two take on a smaller size, following Koha's advice, and float to their master's side. While it'd be easy for them to let him function underwater right away, he decides against it for now, wanting to enjoy the ocean. lled concurs, feeling everyone else's envious gaze, and telling him to join them. He does as told, and is met with disappointed faces and doubts over his day with the fairy. As he tries to quell their worries, they then ask him to choose who looks best in a swimsuit. Trying to avoid the question, he innocently picks Sue, but makes suspicious allegations grow even more. To make things worse, his phone falls out, revealing a photo of the two girls he took earlier. As he tries to clarify, Yumina takes his side and ends the doubt, telling him to make it up to them instead. They spend the rest of the day playing in the water, and the sun soon falls. With the Black Emperor's protection, Touya descends to the seabed, calmly walking around and breathing like normal. Entering the ruins, he finds himself in a large room with a weird platform in the middle. He passes magic through a gem at the center and is suddenly transported to a large and unfamiliar garden. There, a woman named Cheska comes up to him, saying she's the terminal that controls the aerial garden of Babylon. However, he bashfully looks away, seeing that she isn't wearing any bottoms. Touya is taken aback, as the lady in front of him wears no bottoms. He asks that she wear something more, unable to convince himself that it's just a swimsuit. Obliging, she puts on a skirt, much to his relief. Saying that they're in the flying garden, She explains that it's a facility built by the professor, Regina, as a hobby. As she adds that she is their creator, Sango points out that she isn't a living human. Actually, she was built to serve as the garden's control terminal, more than 5,100 years ago. More than anything, she's an amalgam of machine and magical life form, built of mechanical and biological parts. In the 5,000 years that it's been flying, the garden has never broken down or malfunctioned, as all parts have been reinforced with magic, with Cheska on standby for emergencies. Remembering that she has a guest, the boy finally introduces himself. Suddenly, she deems him suitable and compatible, and transfers ownership of herself to him. The gate he passed through could only be used by someone with all affinities, like her master. As such, Regina decided to pass them on to someone capable of using the magic circle. However, it's more than just affinity. She deemed him compatible, as he asked her to cover herself, not giving in to any temptations that might have clouded his mind. It's a method the professor came up with, to determine if any visitors had the kindness to be put in charge of them. That said, the final decision is given to them, and she'd rather have someone who steals glances, instead of someone who slyly acts like a caring feminist. Regardless of the specifics, he's now her master, and the owner of the aerial garden. Meanwhile, the ladies are still delightfully playing by the beach. As Charlotte trips over, her master reminds her that she has work to do. As it's been a while since Touya dived down, the others begin to worry, but Lean assures them that things should be fine, although insisting that she doesn't know much about the ruins. Just then, a gate opens, and the young man's head pops up. As they're brought to the garden, they're introduced to Cheska, and the elder remarks that the vehicle looks like an artifact of the ancient Partheno civilization. The terminal explains that ownership of her and the garden has already been transferred to Touya, and her recollection of their encounter ignites anger throughout his group of women. He kneels in obedience, as Lin scolds him for being so drawn to women and their undergarments, demanding a proper explanation. Lin rescues him, telling the ladies to be clear with where they stand, if they demand such things from him, adding that they have to equal the princess at least. Delighted, Yumina says they'll leave the three to talk about their investigation. As she brings the others away, the supposed fiancé brings up the agreement they made when they moved into the mansion. That day, she confirmed their feelings for Touya, which were obvious from the way they acted towards him. Knowing that he'll achieve great things in the future, she's delighted to know that he's surrounded by wonderful comrades and has no intention of monopolizing him. As such, she suddenly offers that they all become the young man's brides. They shelve the discussion then, but she'd like to ask them again, after noticing that their feelings only grew stronger after the talk. Although their words express hesitation, their minds are filled with happy images of marriage, prompting her to give them more time again. Meanwhile, the three are finally talking about the investigation. Lean expected to find a few magic spells, but his discovery of the 5,000-year-old garden is much better. While carrying questionable morals, Regina was truly a genius above the rest. That said, the garden is only a garden, which holds no other treasures or weapons, unlike the others. Catching the last phrase, Lean asks her to expound, so Cheska says there are several areas drifting in the sky, managed by her sisters. All in all, they form Babylon itself, which was split apart by their creator 5,000 years ago. The ladies return, blushing bright red. There were 9 different facilities built, all of which are protected by a barrier, making them imperceivable from the surface. The elder is particularly drawn to the library, likely filled with mountains of ancient knowledge. Unfortunately, Cheska's connections with her sisters have already been severed, so she's unable to contact them. Lin suggests using Touya's smartphone to search, earning her praise from the young man. However, his search comes up blank. There were 2 instances of contact, around 3,000 and 1,000 years ago. In other words, the only way to reach Babylon's pieces is to find their individual magic circles. They don't even know the reason it was split up, as the professor never explained her decision. Moving on to the issue at hand, they ask Cheska what she wants to do, now that ownership has been transferred. She wants to stay with him every second if possible, adding that she can leave the garden with minimal risks. With no choice, he accepts his fate. To finalize his registration, she shocks everyone by going in for an intimate and passionate kiss, allowing her to record his genetic information. Pushed by the sudden turn of events, Linz confesses her feelings and kisses him as well. Cheska is brought to the mansion as a maid, and the newcomer readily expresses her passion. Later on his bed, His mind is riddled with the memory of Linz's kiss, but it's interrupted by a knock on the door. It's Yumina, who expresses her anger at how he hasn't kissed her yet, but is going around allowing others to kiss him. She doesn't care how many wives he has, but it's a problem, as he hasn't even kissed his actual wife yet. Taking a seat beside him, she offers forgiveness, in exchange for a hug and a kiss. While hesitant, he puts his arm around her and goes in for an intimate kiss, the first time he's initiated himself. As the princess suddenly asks how he feels about Linz, he shares that her confession made him happy, but adds that his mind is still muddled with thoughts. When he expresses how much he cherishes her, Yumina calls out, and Linz appears, previously hidden by Lin's invisibility spell. The young man is scolded for leaving her without an answer, right after her confession. She's been crying all night, thinking he hated her. As they clear the air about their feelings, the princess asks if he'd take her as his wife, as it's common for nobles to have multiple. As he agrees in resignation, he gives them both goodnight kisses and sends them to their room. The next morning, he's woken up as Elsa furiously barges into his room. Outside, Ye is also waiting, and they talk about last night's unexpected engagement. The ladies, taking an unorthodox approach, suddenly challenged him to a fight in exchange for an undeniable request. Still not understanding what's happening, he follows their wishes and takes on the requested restrictions for their match. He fights just with his gunblade, but easily overpowers the two. He refuses to end the match by shooting them, but his kindness is why they fell in love with him as well. Unfortunately, they know him too well and have taken his bullets in secret. The surprise attack knocks him unconscious, and he wakes up to 2 new confessions and marriage proposals. Yumina appears, revealing that it was all her suggestion. Acknowledging that he's being pressured, they agree to give the young man time to sort out his feelings. At the garden, he opens up to Cheska about how he doubts that he can make everyone happy, and if he can fulfill his duties as a husband. She suddenly says that Regina has a message for him. To his surprise, she takes a phone cord out of her wrist, saying he'll know what to do. As soon as he plugs it in, a hologram of the professor pops up. Knowing he must have several questions, she jokes around, interacting with the boy in real time. She explains that she has a tool that allows her to look into the future. While his adventure was free for her to watch, there was a time she couldn't see, caused by the phrase's sudden appearance. Despite doing everything she could, the Partheno civilization collapsed, and the flow of time in her era was altered. The world was on the brink of destruction, but the phrase disappeared out of nowhere. Thanks to that, she was able to see the future again and enjoy his situation with women. As she entrusts Babylon to him, he asks how she's enjoying herself, despite knowing the tragic future that's to come. Saying it'd be no fun to explain things, she says goodbye, adding that Cheska will lose her clothes when the message ends. It was a joke, but the terminal offered to make it true. Flustered, Touya uses his gate to meet with God, who is watching his life from the heavens. He talks about his girl troubles, but the old man tells him to enjoy it without much concern. Getting an idea, he calls someone else, saying he knows the perfect person to ask. Soon enough, a beautiful woman appears, introducing herself as the god of love. While she doesn't force people's feelings, she does occasionally dabble in certain moods and cliches. Although reluctant, he opens up about his situation. Hearing that they love each other anyway, she suggests letting go of his previous world's restrictions and being happy in his current one. Moreover, he's too concerned with making everyone happy that he's sacrificing his own desires. Having a better idea of what to do, he laments in the mansion for a while and calls the 4 women over. To their surprise, he announces that he won't be marrying, but only for the time being. Unwilling to be pressured into it, he promises to marry them when he's more mature. It's slightly selfish, but they're completely free to cast him aside as well. Having successfully reaffirmed their feelings, Yumina says it's time to let them grow. Hearing that the 2 kissed him the night before, Elsa and Ye say they want to be kissed as well. He obliges, but Elsa gets flustered and knocks him unconscious, a sight amusing to those watching outside. According to Cheska, the professor saw 9 wives beside him, and they wonder if Lean will be one of them. While walking through town, Touya sees a young man coming short on his payment for food. He offers to pay, and the boy introduces himself as Enda,